The story begins with the illusion of perfection, the kind of glossy exterior that makes people believe a family has everything: a thriving business, a respected name, a beautiful wife, and 3 children who seem to have stepped out of a postcard. But behind every polished door can lie a darkness no one expects. And in this case, it wasn't poverty, desperation, or misfortune that cracked a family apart. It was money, the desire for it, the power that came with it, and the belief that wealth could shield someone from consequences. People often say wealth corrupts, but the truth is far sharper. Money doesn't create flaws. It magnifies the ones that already exist, giving certain people the dangerous illusion that they are untouchable. And in the Brits family, that illusion grew into something deadly. To truly understand how a successful, admired South African family shattered so violently, we have to go back nearly 5 decades. In the early 1970s, the Brits family, European immigrants, settled in the quiet yet influential town of Pafador in the Northern Cape. Though small, the town was known as a gateway to tourism and regional trade. For the Brits family, it was a place where the dream of building something meaningful turned into reality. By local standards, they were wealthy, genuinely wealthy. The family patriarch owned one of the town's only hotels. Over time, he expanded it into a full complex with lodging, a restaurant, and eventually event facilities. The business grew steadily, and so did the Brits family. Their first son, Toki, arrived in 1976, followed by Leon in 1979. Both boys were exceptional students. They were athletes, well-liked, and their parents made sure they received top-tier educations. Eventually, Toki moved away to build his own life, but Leon stayed behind, determined to inherit the business he had been helping with since his teenage years. He was smart, organized, and had a natural talent for management. Under his care, the hotel thrived and became a cornerstone of local hospitality. It was during one of the many seasonal celebrations hosted at the family's hotel that Leon encountered someone who would change the course of his entire life. A slender brunette with striking green eyes, barely 14 years old, caught his attention from across the room. Her name was Sarita. She looked older than her age, and her sad smile hinted at a life far heavier than that of an ordinary teenager. Leon, already 25, was shocked when he learned she was still in school. Even so, they danced, talked, and something in him became fixated on her. When a man with status and resources sets his sights on someone who's vulnerable, the imbalance of power becomes almost impossible to ignore. Sarita grew up in a family of Eastern European immigrants. They were very poor and tragedy-struck when she was just 9. Her father died from a venomous snake bite, leaving her mother with 3 children and no way to provide. Sarita's childhood became a cycle of hard work, limited opportunities, and survival. When Leon entered her life, showering her with gifts, dinners, and promises of comfort she had never known, she was overwhelmed. And at 14, she didn't have the maturity or experience to understand the implications of receiving affection from a much older man. Her mother, exhausted from years of struggle, approved of the relationship. She saw Leon as a stable, responsible man who adored her daughter. But Leon's parents were horrified. They saw the precarious legal and moral danger. Leon insisted he would wait until Sarita turned 18. But a year later, everything changed. At 15, Sarita discovered she was pregnant. Leon panicked. He knew the consequences: a criminal investigation, public disgrace, possibly prison. His response was to pressure Sarita into an anonymous termination at a private clinic. The pregnancy was far enough along that the procedure left her physically and emotionally devastated. But Leon assured her they would build a happy life later, and the young girl who relied on him financially and emotionally believed him. 3 years passed, and when Sarita became pregnant again during her senior year of high school, Leon once more demanded she end it. But at 18, on the cusp of adulthood, She refused. Leon realized he couldn't pressure her the same way he had before. Instead, he proposed. The two married, celebrated with a lavish ceremony, and welcomed their first son soon after. Two outsiders. They looked like a dream family, young, attractive, wealthy, and established. 2 years later, Sarita gave birth to twins, and their family grew into the perfect picture of success. But underneath that picture was a relationship built on imbalance, resentment, and unspoken wounds. While the business flourished, the marriage deteriorated. Leon expanded into retail with a chain of stores and fast food outlets. The Brits family became one of the wealthiest in the Northern Cape. But with success came jealousy, threats, and constant anxiety. By the mid-2010s, tragedy struck again. Leon's father passed away suddenly, and their mother's health collapsed soon after. Dementia took hold quickly, and she was placed in a full-time care facility. Toki moved back home to help Leon manage the growing businesses. Leon also gave Sarita control of a new store registered in her name. For a while, Sarita threw herself into work and parenting. But when the family moved Sarita and the children to a home in the city of Kokamas for better schooling options, the emotional distance between husband and wife widened even further. Then came the health crisis that changed everything. Sarita was diagnosed with cancer and cardiovascular issues. Surgery saved her life, but the long-term treatment in Johannesburg cost a fortune. Leon paid every bill without hesitation, but their relationship was almost entirely hollow by this point. While traveling for treatments, Sarita started an affair. Leon, too, had his own relationships. What remained between them was routine and obligation, held together only by their children and the wealth that bound their lives. Meanwhile, the family business continued to thrive. The hotel, stores, restaurants, and real estate investments brought in remarkable profits, but the fear of threats, the pressure of managing multiple operations, and the weight of maintaining appearances added constant stress to Leon's life. He hid cash, diamonds, gold bars, and securities in multiple safes across his properties. He felt watched, vulnerable, and convinced that someone would try to take what he'd built. On October 7, 2020, the illusion of control shattered. Sarita called Leon about their loose dog, something she had arranged intentionally. Leon promised to check and call her back, but that call never came. When she drove to the house, after he stopped answering, she found the door open, the house silent, and her husband floating in the pool. His back was covered in stab wounds, and the water was tinged with blood. Police arrived and quickly ruled the death a homicide. The safe had been opened, valuables taken, but other expensive items remained untouched. It looked like a targeted hit. At first, suspicion fell on Toki. He had visited shortly before the murder. Their mother's will was rumored to be stored in Leon's home. Investigators theorized he wanted to change it and had staged a robbery. Sarita reinforced these suspicions, claiming there were disputes between the brothers. The case stalled for 2 months until a man named Jacques Van Veren walked into the police station and confessed. Jacques had gone to school with Sarita. He had loved her once, and she knew it. When they reconnected, he was divorced, unemployed, struggling with alcoholism, and desperate. She told him stories of abuse claims that were never substantiated. Anne said the only way to save herself and her children was to eliminate Leon. She promised Jacques R500,000 to arrange everything. He recruited 2 men, Enrique Williams and Amanda Labashi, both desperate for money. Sarita gave them access to the house, instructions, and permission to take anything from the safe. When Leon walked in, one man struck him with a baseball bat. The other stabbed him repeatedly. They dragged his body to the pool and dumped it to simulate a robbery gone wrong. But things unraveled quickly. There was no cash in the safe. Sarita couldn't pay them without exposing herself. Jacques panicked, circled the house too many times, and was caught on camera. The killers began threatening him, fearing for his life. Jacques finally confessed, exposing the entire conspiracy. The truth was devastating. Sarita wanted Leon gone so she could inherit everything, move in with her lover, and take control of the family empire. She had even hoped to frame Toki, eliminating both brothers at once. But her plan fell apart the moment she couldn't pay the killers or silence Jacques. At trial, Jacques received 20 years. The two hired killers were sentenced to life, with no parole. And Sarita, the mastermind behind it all, was given 25 years. She claimed she'd been a victim since childhood, but the evidence showed a calculated, financially motivated plot built on manipulation, lies, and greed. 3 years later, she remains behind bars, and the once admired Brit's family exists now only as a cautionary tale.